Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alison Lagrange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global south. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alison Lagrange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Chinese President Xi Jinping and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un hold talks on bilateral ties and issues of mutual concern, a day after the World War II anniversary parade in Beijing. European leaders meet Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Paris to discuss security guarantees for Kiev in case of a peace accord with Russia to end the 3.5-year war. The death toll rises to 32 after a crowded ferry capsized in Nigeria's Niger State, the country's latest fatal boat tragedy. Investigations begin after a funicular cable railway derailed and crashed into a building in Portugal's capital, Lisbon, killing at least 17 people. And 2 armed Turkish men are arrested in Italy on suspicion of plotting an attack just hours before a popular local festival, this according to Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Hello and welcome. We start with updates from war-torn Sudan. 2 months after the United States imposed sanctions on Sudan, accusing the army of using chemical weapons in the 2-year civil war, the government has released a new report debunking the claims. The report says there is no evidence of chemical or radioactive contamination. Sudan claims the findings are based on field tests and forensic reviews carried out since April, when the army regained control of capital Khartoum from the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF. The report says field data, medical reports and surveillance systems show no mass deaths or symptoms of chemical poisoning. Forensic teams also reported no fatalities typically linked to chemical weapons. In June, Washington imposed sanctions on the army-backed government, alleging it used chemical weapons last year against the RSF. However, the US provided no details of where or when the attacks took place. Sudan dismissed the accusations as baseless and as political blackmail. The conflict between the army and the RSF, which began in April of 2023, has killed tens of thousands and has driven over 14 million people from their homes. The RSF is also under US sanctions. In January, the State Department determined the group committed genocide against ethnic communities in Darfur and sanctioned its leader, Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo. Darfur is now seeing heavy fighting, particularly in the besieged city of Al Fasher. It is the last Sudan army stronghold in the region, and residents there face starvation, death, and little hope of escape.
Regarding the food, we are very tired. We're tired. Nothing is left for us to eat. Life is so hard. Sometimes we find a portion of animal feed. Other times we can't even find that. We're just staying, but the situation is very, very, very hard.
The Trump administration has also launched new peace efforts in Sudan. It planned a summit in Washington in July with Egypt, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, but the Sudanese government was excluded, triggering criticism over exclusivity and failure to engage civilian groups. Earlier, peace processes, including the Jeddah talks, were also criticized for shutting out civil society and key regional actors, undermining their effectiveness. All of this comes as Sudan stands on the brink of division. The RSF has declared a parallel government in areas under its control, with leader Hamdan Dagalo sworn in as its chief. So far, peace efforts have failed, civilian casualties continue to rise, and with rival governments now taking shape, the conflict shows little sign of ending. Humanitarian conditions are deteriorating rapidly, and the risk of a full national breakup is growing. Now, for more on this, we have with us Meki Almograbi, African Affairs expert, who is joining us live from Cairo, Egypt. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Alison. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Let's jump straight in. Now, Sudan's health ministry claims that there is no evidence of chemical or radioactive contamination in Khartoum. How credible are these findings, given that the government is under scrutiny and has a vested interest in denying the allegations?
Sudan is a member of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, and Sudan in the Executive Council, so that reinforces the credibility of Sudan's position over claims from a country that always pointing finger to Sudan and other nations, which is United States in this case. So there is no logic that the Sudanese government will deny an existing problem, because now people are returning to Sudan in large numbers. As example, here from Cairo or from Egypt, generally, people are returning to Sudan, and the return is organized and sponsored by the government itself in large numbers, daily buses, daily trains, and sponsored by the industrial defense system, which is a public sector companies. So that I don't think there is benefit for the government to bring Sudanese people to contaminated areas.
Right. With Washington having imposed sanctions in June based on the alleged chemical weapons use, what impact could this report then have on U.S. policy? Could it lead to a reassessment of the sanctions, or will geopolitical considerations override Sudan's internal report?
Sudan has very long history with the United States and its politicized report and standards. Sudan remained in the terror list for 20 years, while Sudan has full cooperation on counterterrorism with the United States, and still remained in that list for a long time. And when lifted, it was a political compromise, contain things like normalization with Israel and other things that has nothing to do with the counterterrorism cooperation with Sudan and the good records of Sudan with the United States itself. So politicized report from United States that will not change, because this is the nature of United States. Sudan understand that very well, and the decision is heavily manipulated by politics. Even if the organization opposes that false reports, still United States, UK could do the same that they have done before in the Iraqi case. They claimed, and then it turned to lies. And the organization of the prohibition of chemical weapons doesn't make any change in the position of the two countries.
Yes. And since these tests were conducted by Sudanese authorities, even though they are a member of the OPCW, what role should the international bodies like the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons play in verifying these claims? And how critical is independent verification for Sudan's global standing?
Sudan in full cooperation with the Organization of Prohibition Chemical Weapons. So Sudan doesn't need someone to push Sudan in cooperation and validating its own reports. But that if that doesn't work with United States, what shall we do? Because this is the case of United States. They always against the truth. They always don't care about the professional reports. So now it's matter of politics, but I have a little hope because now the position of United States started to change, and Zurich meeting between the advisor of Trump, Moshe Boris, and the president of the Sovereignty Council, Burhan, has some positive sides.
Right. Meki, thank you very much for being with us on First Post Africa.
Thank you. Thank you again.
And moving on, let's turn our attention to Morocco. A feminist activist has been sentenced to 30 months in jail for blasphemy. Her name is Ibetsami Lachgar. Lachgar is a human rights activist, a vocal defender of women's and LGBTQ rights in Morocco, where same-sex marriages are illegal. She was arrested last month after she posted a picture of herself on social media. In the photo, Lachgar was wearing a T-shirt with a slogan referring to Islam. In her post, Lachgar also slammed the religion as fascist and misogynistic. The post sparked controversy, and Lachgar was charged with blasphemy. The court has now ruled that Lachgar's post violated Morocco's criminal code, which makes it illegal to offend the monarchy or Islam. Along with the prison sentence, Lachgar also faces a fine of $5,500. During an earlier hearing, Lachgar defended herself, saying that the slogan on her T-shirt was a feminist slogan and it had no connection to the Islamic faith.
After her arrest, she was questioned and consistently asserted that this slogan has existed since 1970 and that it was widely used after the execution of the two Iranian women. The global feminist movement has adopted this slogan to denounce anything considered sexist.
Not only Lachgar's case captured global attention, but it has also sparked a debate at home in Morocco. For some, the prison sentence seems like a fit response for Lachgar's provocative post, while others are calling it an attack on freedom of expression.
For us, today's verdict against Ibtissam Lachgar is shocking and unfair. We consider it a serious and grave attack of Ibtissam Lachgar's freedom of expression. I think the association's lawyers will appeal. We'll see what happens at the appeal stage.
Last month, the court rejected Lachgar's release, which she had requested due to health concerns. According to her attorney, Lachgar was battling cancer and was struggling to get the needed care.
Our position, as the Moroccan Association for Human Rights, is that she should be released immediately and unconditionally. However, if this is not possible, we ask that she at least be granted provisional release, as Ibtissam's state of health does not allow her to remain in detention.
This is not the first time that Lachgar has made headlines. In 2009, she staged a midday picnic during Ramadan to protest the ban on eating and drinking in public during the holy month, when a majority of the country fasts. In another incident, more than a decade ago, Lachgar organized a demonstration outside Morocco's parliament, where couples kissed to support two teenagers facing indecency charges, after posting a photo of themselves kissing on Facebook. Lachgar's arrest over her controversial post referring to Islam has sparked a wider debate, which goes beyond the borders of countries and continents. Who decides the limits of morality? Who draws the line between freedom of speech and offending the sentiments of others? Are the parameters of justice the same for all, or are they tweaked and twisted to support a larger narrative that only supports a few? These questions continue to stare all of us in the face. And shifting focus, where there's internet, there are cyber criminals. And in Africa, cybercrime is affecting millions. To counter them, Interpol led a major cybercrime crackdown across Africa called Operation Serengeti 2.0. Now, investigators from 18 African nations and the UK participated in the crackdown. The operation took place between June and August, and it led to the arrest of over 1,200 suspects across Africa, who targeted nearly 88,000 victims. Nearly $100 million were recovered, and over 11,000 malicious networks were taken down. Now let's take a look at some of the highlights from the operation. Starting with Angola, authorities shut down 25 cryptocurrency mining centers where Chinese operators were illegally validating digital currency transactions, seizing equipment worth nearly $37 million. Interpol said that the recovered money will go toward improving electricity distribution in the country. Next is Ivory Coast, where authorities dismantled a transnational inheritance scam which had originated in Germany. It is described as one of the oldest running internet frauds, in which victims pay fees to claim fake fortunes, causing losses of about $1.6 million. Next is Zambia. Investigators targeted a network responsible for an online investment scam. Around 65,000 victims were identified who lost some $300 million. Authorities also disrupted a suspected human trafficking network in Zambia. Now, according to Interpol, reports of online fraud have spiked 3,000% in some African countries during the last year, and cybercrime now makes up more than 30% of all reported crime in West and East Africa. Back in August, Nigeria deported 102 foreign nationals who were convicted of cyber terrorism and internet fraud. This included 60 Chinese nationals and 39 people from the Philippines. Cybercrime is very complex. These criminals could be physically present on one continent, their equipment and infrastructure could be present on another, and their victims are global. This calls for globally coordinated efforts to crack down on cybercriminals who continue to disrupt the lives of many across the world. And Africa is often called the youngest continent. The majority of its people are under 30. But now a new reality taking shape. A wave of longevity is sweeping across Africa, and the continent may not be ready for it. What began as a success story is now taking a grim turn. Decades of progress increased life expectancy, allowing people to live longer, not just in cities, but also in villages. But while lifespans have lengthened, the social structure has not. Pensions and safety nets are minimal. Medical care is inadequate, and common problems of age often go unaddressed, leaving the elderly to suffer in silence. In just 15 years, sub-Saharan Africa's population over 60 has grown by 50%. It's now standing at about 67 million. The World Health Organization projects that number will reach 163 million by the year 2050. As people live longer, many nations are struggling to cope. One of them is Uganda. While life expectancy is rising, the country is struggling to deal with the consequences of an aging population. Uganda's health system is still designed to fight infectious diseases and maternal health issues, but not chronic illnesses like diabetes, hypertension, or dementia, which are now increasing. Mostly elderly Ugandans worked in informal sectors and have no pensions or savings, leaving them dependent on families who are already under financial strain. Many live in rural areas with little access to medical care, and the country still lacks a national aging policy to address healthcare, housing, and social support.
Who are living past 80 to 90 years will not have the physical capacity to look after themselves. So we are going to have at our hands a catastrophe.
So many things for older people affect them. One thing that they suffer most is loneliness. Because once you have grown old, your children are in Kampala and you are in the village, you are just thrown in the house. and nobody cares, nobody feeds you, nobody attends to your health. So you feel very lonely and die alone.
This is not just a Ugandan story. It is happening across Africa. Average life expectancy on the continent has risen by about 10 years in 2 decades. Countries like Rwanda, Kenya, Ghana, and Ethiopia have also seen remarkable longevity gains. But many countries remain unprepared. Health systems struggle to manage chronic diseases. In Kenya, vaccination and HIV programs work well, but non-communicable diseases claim many lives. In the Central African Republic, life expectancy has risen by 10 years since the year 2000, yet malaria and conflict still undermine progress. And as populations age, Africa faces a surge in dementia cases. Families already caring for patients with Alzheimer's and similar diseases are at breaking point.
The next 30 to 50 years, there's going to be more than 10% of our population across Africa. For sure in Uganda will be elderly people. So if we don't have a policy framework like a pension, for incomes, for healthcare access, for also caring for very frail.
Across the continent, there has been little government investment in pensions, healthcare, or caregiving support for the elderly. International aid has also been limited. The dismantling of US aid programs under President Donald Trump has further weakened support structures, making the situation even harder. Africa may be the youngest continent, but its population is aging faster than ever. Longevity is a success story, yet without stronger policies, healthcare and social safety nets, it risks becoming a crisis. Can African nations turn this wave of longevity into a promise, or will it become another challenge they struggle to survive? And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.